Welcome to the Daft Souls podcast. My name is Matt Lees and I'm joined, as usually, by Quentin Smith.
Hello, Matt.
And guest, Keza McDonald.
Hello, everybody.
How are you doing, Keza?
I'm good, thank you.
Good.
I'm still very jet-lagged from Game Developers Conference.
Yeah, I've been really wiped out this week.
Oh, me too. I've been basically waking up at 4:30 and then going to sleep at about midday, and that's me, done.
I had a nap on Matt's sofa 4 hours ago.
You did?
Which made it seem like I was like a fireman or a sort of...
A vagrant?
A vagrant, yeah, an exciting job, but actually we were just making videos about games and recording Let's Plays.
It's fine. It was like being back at GDC and sharing a hotel room of having to say to you, like, Gwen, it's time to get up now. We need to do work.
And I would say, I'm not getting up.
Yeah.
I'm not getting up. You go up without me. Keza, how was your GDC?
It was very good. I had a very chill time. It was very nice.
That's good.
And I met a bunch of cool people who I like, which is good. And we got a really good scoop out of it on Kotaku, which is that I was standing behind some developers in line, and they were like, "Yeah, dude, has Sony showed you the PlayStation 4.5 yet?" And I was like,
That's the thing.
interesting.
That's the thing. There were so many people having conversations in front of people, and I mean, I don't report news, so I didn't really care about it. But it was just like so many things. It'd just been like having people just candidly having conversations in front of me that I'm standing there going, I don't think you should be saying this.
The thing is, you can't report that just off a conversation.
No.
But what you can do is listen to that and then
follow them.
and then go to all of your
for 4
sources.
hours.
But then go to all your sources and be like, so I've heard this. Is this a thing? And then eventually you end up with
Somebody
a cool
cracks.
story.
Eventually somebody cracks.
But then you get to do the cool, well, I say cool journalist thing. I'm sure some
Cool
of our
scoops.
listeners won't think this is cool, but you hear the word PlayStation 4.5 and you just go up to someone and go, hey, so what do you know about the PlayStation 4.5? Because I know a lot.
Yeah,
and then they're like, well, I know this.
You
and
drop your info.
Yeah.
Give you more info.
It's like monkey bars of truth.
But it's funny that the way it kind of illustrates the way that kind of real, like hard news journalism works. Essentially, you hear something, and then if you're a good journalist and not an idiot, you then have to corroborate it with people who are trustworthy, and that's the fun bit.
Yeah.
The fun bit isn't overhearing something. The fun bit is doing the fun work.
Finding the actual links that you need.
Doing the work, like the actual work of chasing down a lead. I still love it so much. I'm doing this forever.
I've never done that, and I think I would probably like it as well. But
What was the was it Gorka who discovered that there was like a secret exit of a New York hotel and then had the most awesome heist piece of journalism of just trying to locate the secret subterranean celebrity tunnels beneath this
so cool. I don't know if that was
hotel.
that sounds feasible because those things have existed in all sorts of forms for many years.
Yes, and it was the case of them going to like every Chinese. They knew it came out of a Chinese restaurant. They were going to every Chinese restaurant and trying to like bribe the people that were
that's like
being like,
That's awesome.
is there a secret tunnel under your restaurant?
That's kind of what gets me excited now, because 3/4 of all the writing on the internet is here's a thing that I feel. And what, although that's all fine and good and very interesting to read a lot of the time, what I actually really enjoy writing personally is the stuff that's here's a thing I found out.
Yeah,
Because it's just more exciting and rarer.
It lets you feel like a detective.
Yeah, and you do actually have unique information, whereas your feelings on a game, however interesting and informed and thought-provoking they might be, everybody has feelings on a game.
Everybody has feelings. But I find that sort of thing brilliant for people like me who have lots of feelings, but don't really know much. I'll tell you what the deal's going to be with this podcast. We're going to try and keep it tight and nice. Like something that's like a small
donut.
Like a donut, yes. Because it's GDC week after, we're all kind of dying. So we're probably not going to do questions at the end. And to begin with, I think we're probably going to talk about GDC a little bit, which is probably a little bit inside baseball, but we'll talk about some games towards the end.
Oh, I have a way to make it fun. I want to talk about our top networking experiences at
this
GDC.
is the thing.
Is this hashtag networking?
No, well, basically, it's...
Hashtag no.
And by top networking, I mean mine and Matt's most embarrassing sort of failures at networking.
Yeah, you described this best as rolling a 1 at networking.
Yes, I made my networking check, rolled a 1. So because I prefer Matt's story, so I'll go first.
Okay.
I was hanging out with a friend of mine who said, the lead dev of Soma is over there. And I really liked Soma. So I thought to myself, maybe 3 pints in, 2 nights with very little sleep. I'm like, I'll go.
And it's great. You see devs, you think, they made that? You just go and say, hey, I love your work.
And often they'll be like, I love your thing. And then that's why you go there, because it fills you with joy. So I went up to this man and went, you made that. So no, sorry, I'm getting this wrong. I went, hey. And he's like, hello. And I went, you made Soma. And he said, yes. I don't think I even introduced myself.
Oh my God.
And then I thought, at this point in the conversation, I was like, now I'll ask him a really good question about the development of Soma. I think I was silent for slightly too long. I just stood next to him, probably smelling of beer, for just long enough that he then turned to his friend and continued the conversation they were having. And I was just stood next to his shoulder. And I stood there for a while, and then I walked off. So I will.
And then you walked home. That was
I walked home. Yeah,
that was the point where you decided I need to go home.
Yeah, it's like this is not going to work out for me this night. It's
over. Very awkward.
Yeah,
you made Soma. He did make Soma.
I had a thing where on the last day, it was Friday.
I love that.
And I was really hungover.
I love this so much.
It was really hard work. The thing about GDC is it's fantastic fun, but you are just spending constant time talking to people about different things
all day.
And then in the evening, we were either going out for dinner and talking to people, or recording podcasts, or guesting on videos. So it was pretty back to back. So I was wiped out. Friday afternoon, I'd just been on the GameSpot thing with Danny O'Dwyer, which you should check out. That was a really good little podcast.
How will people find that?
I'll link it in the description for this podcast.
Okay.
Actually, either that or somebody in the comments will say, you said you'd link it and you didn't, and then I'll link it and go, sorry.
Those are comments you'll find on coolghosts.net.
Yeah, coolghosts.net. It's the website. And yeah, I'd already talked to them on Twitter before I went. And I'd said, you guys showing, where are you going to be? And somebody go, oh yeah, come. And they'd show me on the map where they were going to be. And the weird thing was, this was the only game I was actually on the show floor to go and have a look at, because I'd seen little GIFs of it. And it's called, I think, Farah and the Eye of Darkness.
Okay.
It looks really cool. It's got kind of like a drafting system. It's a bit like top-down Zelda, very twee, cool music, cool animations. Anyway, I went over and I was just wiped out. And I had a quick go on it and thought, that's cool. And I had the sort of PR dude for it being like, have you played the dev's previous game? And giving me like a free Steam key for that. And I was like, yeah, is the dev around? Like, I thought I just wanted to go and say, hey, and say, I enjoyed it. And he's like, yeah, he's over there. So I just go over and just walk over and go, hey, how's it going? And
this is, the guy who obviously invited you on Twitter.
Yeah, that's what I figured. I couldn't remember exactly who it was, but I remember somebody who was involved in making a game had said, come down. So because of that, I kind of assumed that maybe they maybe knew who I was, rather than just being a rando on Twitter saying, are you at GDC? Can I see your game? And yeah, I was just, in their minds, I was just a rando. And I had this really awkward thing of kind of interrupting a conversation, not meaning to. Basically just walking over and going, hey, how's it going? And then just being like, everyone looking at me just to go, who the fuck is this guy? And then I had this moment where I was like, oh my God, there's two ways I can take this. I could either just say, like the game, and then step away and leave. Or I can say,
style it out.
Do you know who I am? Do you know, we talked on Twitter, don't you know? And
no.
It was this thing of being like, I can either say, I thought you knew who I was.
The animation that accompanies this is Matt holding up his lanyard towards the person and going, Matt Lees.
This is my name.
I'm Matt Lees.
Do you know who I am?
Did you do that?
No, I didn't.
Oh my God.
I was exhausted that I wasn't that stupid. That would have been the worst thing. But there was a genuine kind of crossroads in my head of being like, do I just... Because I thought maybe they just don't know what I look like, and when I show up my thing, they'll be like, "Oh yeah, thanks for coming." But I didn't. I just instead went, "Well, thanks," and then I was just I basically just became Captain Rando, just like bumping into a conversation, like I'm really hungover and tired, just going, "Hey, I like your game. I'm gonna go now." Bye.
My best networking moment of GDC was when someone came up to me and clearly thought I was one of the other 3 women in games.
Oh.
And it's like, whenever that happens, I'm like, dude, there are literally 8 of us. Like, can you not figure? And we don't look that.
No, you all
similar.
look quite different.
Yeah,
you're like different, like characters in a beat 'em up.
Well,
to be fair, there's another Scottish female games journalist with glasses who I was mistaken for. But usually I would be like, I'd take the piss in that situation. But I was feeling quite chill for most of GDC. It was like Thursday or Friday, and I was pretty like just laid back. And I was just letting him talk until he realised his own mistake.
Oh,
and that was really great. I was just kind of nodding and smiling until he
let
kind
him
of
walk
mentioned
into
something.
his own trap.
Yeah, exactly. And then I just like started just briefly talking about like Kotaku or something else until he figured, and I saw the moment that he realised that he got it wrong. And I could see him in his brain being like, oh my God, did she notice? She must have noticed. I talked about how much I enjoyed her book. She doesn't have a book, it's the other one that has a book. And then he decided he had to go to the toilet and ran away.
I did lose.
Literally, I have to go to the toilet now.
Yes.
Sprints
Yes.
as fast as he can.
Oh wow! You do get some people really trying very hard to network.
And the thing is, bless him, he was a perfectly nice guy, but I didn't. Normally, I would have headed them off at the pass and maybe taken the piss, and then it would have been okay. But I just let him go on a bit too.
I had one guy who came up to me because I shouldn't do this, but I'd swap lanyards with somebody else so they could go to a different area because they wanted to check something out. And you're probably not allowed to do that, but I was really tired and I didn't think about it. Anyway, I just
stole your lanyard.
Yeah, somebody stole my lanyard, is what I'm saying, and then it was like an Indiana Jones swap, and I looked down and I was like, what?
Like cash.
But I'm not this person. This person was like a small Canadian lady, and but somebody came up to me and said, "Oh, hey, I really love your podcast," and I was like, "Oh, thanks." Like,
Thank you. It was your podcast.
And then he came back like 10 minutes later and said, "Oh, hey, I really love your podcast." And I was like, "You literally just said that to me like a minute ago." And he's like, "Yeah, but you didn't have your name. You had a different name badge on then." So it's like,
well, I'm not a different person.
What podcast did you think there was before? It was just like, it's just a generic. I mean, to be fair,
maybe he thought you were two different people.
I don't know. Maybe the other person had a really good podcast as well.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just bizarre having somebody come and say this to me 5 minutes. I was like, "You've done this."
That's very strange.
Then there was the adorable kid who was like a journalism student who just came up to me and said, "Oh, hey, what's this?" And I was like, "Oh, we're doing a board game thing. We've got Shut Up and Sit Down where you can check out some of these board games, explain to what it is." And he's like, "Oh, you do board game stuff? That's so cool. I do a board game thing as well." And then he just said, "Do you have any contacts?"
It's the best question.
It was just
adorable. Do you have any contact?
It was just like, I was like, maybe. Who do you want to know?
That is a dude who has learned to communicate purely from playing like Bethesda RPGs of walking up to people.
I had a few of those.
I would like. Do you know anything about the Grey Fox?
It's the fact that people still think networking is an activity in itself.
Do you know where I can find some sailors?
Exactly. It's that. It's, do you have any contacts? And it's like, why, yes. I know the head of game industries.
There was a dude that monologued at me in the bookshop. He was very sweet, but obviously not like.
I should have gone to the GDC
enormously
bookshop.
Socially experienced.
I should have left the board game lounge.
The thing that was adorable about the boy who wanted contacts in the board game industry was, I said, "Oh well, there are a bunch of board game companies." And I said, "Well, I guess the biggest board game company in the world is Asmodee Fantasy Flight, and they're based in Minnesota." And he's like, "Oh, I live in Minnesota." And I was just like, "Are you fucking kidding? Like, do you really like? Why am I here? You don't need this." Like, but yeah.
So I was monologuing.
Oh, yeah, a dude in the bookshop just came up and just literally tapped me on the shoulder. I turned around and he went, "Hello, Miss McDonald. I am." And then he launched into like a 5-minute speech. He was very nice, actually. It's very sweet. But he literally just monologued right at me. And then at the end, he just sort of said thank you and walked away. And I was like, that wasn't an interaction. That was just you speaking at me.
That was somebody handing in a quest.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it felt like he had a script and he just kind of recited it to people. But he was a very nice guy. He gave me his card and everything.
Oh.
Very sweet guy. But it was just like you sometimes meet the weird thing at GDC is if you're even slightly well known. Like if someone comes up to you and they know you but you don't know them.
Yeah.
Or the other way around, this happens to all of us very often where you go up to someone and you know who they are but they don't know who you are. You've got that kind of awkward moment where you're like, did they know? Am I supposed to know you? Do you know me?
The thing I still find for that is when I'm at GDC is because you have like so many different tiers and layers of people walking around. You do have a lot of the bigwigs just wandering around, and I always forget because I spent so much time watching footage of them when I was doing the abridged conference.
You don't know them.
I forget that I don't know them. And so I have to stop myself because I'm quite personable. I have to stop myself from going, "Hey, how's it going?" and saying, "How are you doing?" Because I feel like I know them because I spent so much time looking at them and learning their mannerisms and thinking about them and stuff. And I don't know, it's really weird. But yeah, there was some really cool.
I used that technique on Jeff Keighley once. I just went up and went, "Hey man, how's it going?" Never met him. And he's like, "Hi, how are you?" Like he's such a pro, that guy. He like really pretended really well that he knew me.
Yeah.
It was really nice of him.
And
thanks,
actually,
Jeff, if
like
you're listening.
Major Nelson's very good at that as well. But to the point it pissed me off years ago because I had never met Major Nelson before, and I just went, "Hey Major, how you doing?" He's like, "Great to see you." And I was just like,
"You don't know me.
We've never met."
That's rude. That is a honey trap of socialising. I disapprove.
But that's only because that was at that point. It was like, to me, it was like a laughable joke that I might know him because I was a nobody and I was pissed.
And now you're a medium buddy.
Yeah, medium level buddy, small to medium level.
My actual, just to sort of move on from the
sure
comedy of errors. My favourite observation about GDC this year, though, while we all love it and had an amazing time, was that it was all VR this year. It was VR
my god.
everywhere. Everyone wants to be involved in VR somehow.
It's like 2 years ago it was all free-to-play monetization of mobile games and now it's all VR.
Yeah, and my partner says, probably correctly, that it is going to the bubble cannot
in 2 years, it will be
sustain.
electric finger sticks, the cool new thing. We just don't know what it is yet.
Don't you dare tell anybody about my electric finger stick. Otherwise, it's not going to be big. But so you've got all these VR companies, endless VR lounges and VR headsets and VR talks, VR tracks getting moved into bigger rooms because some people wanted to see talks. Meanwhile, San Francisco's native sort of and happily or not drug using population that are right outside the Moscone Center, like
that's what I was saying, wasn't it?
Oh, I'm completely stealing this from you. Yeah, this was your point.
Yeah.
That you have people wandering around who are, for want of a better term, just in an actual other world.
Yeah.
And desperately in need of care of of
San
of the
Francisco's a
society.
really rough place.
It's just there's a heavy use of hallucinogens going on there in the homeless population, and it just means this weird thing of it, all these well-off middle-class white dudes like queuing up for hours to get this experience, while there's all these people having this experience outside in possibly not a pleasant way, but everyone just ignores it, and it's just a weird juxtaposition.
Stepping over the people in other worlds
It just felt very cyberpunk.
Yeah, I don't want to get into a big thing on San Francisco, but it is one of the. It skeeves me out. It's one of the scariest places because it's like. It's a kind of gleaming city of money and progress, and then in the meantime it has this proper ignored underclass of people who are in desperate need of help and care.
Matt's correct, it is the most cyberpunk city in
It's
the
very
world.
dystopian in a way.
And I hadn't thought about it until this year, because every time I go out there I find it very uncomfortable because of the fact that you have this massive problems with poverty and mental health care, but then also next to this huge wealth, and they're just disinterested in it.
I feel like
but then people said I heard somebody say this year it feels weird like being part of this like tech influx, and I was like, oh shit, yeah, this is like I'm part of this, like I'm here at GDC, like I hadn't thought of that. But
well, being a big old Scottish socialist, I feel like if our city gets richer, then everybody's quality of life should improve.
Yeah, about that.
Well, I think they're starting to realise that
capitalism, is it?
I think people are starting to realise that's maybe not a bad idea.
Anyway, today on Socialism Daily.
I thought the VR thing was cute. The most laughs I got at, well, not cute in that way, obviously, it's sort of horrifying in that way I just described, but also it gave me the most laughs of the whole convention. I loved hearing about all the growing pains of the VR industry because holy shit, they're funny.
Some great little anecdotes, right?
Yeah, no, two that I absolutely adored. We got one of a guy who came to the Board Game Lounge described that his novel use for VR, because he has an early VR headset, is he uses it to get to sleep. Because between the headsets and...
That's weird.
Wait for it, though. So he has these big headphones and he puts on like a beach or something, and it's like...
soporific.
It's soporific. You're not lapping waves and you're not, for whatever reason, it's almost like being in a womb, maybe. I don't know. But he stopped doing this because at one point he woke up at 3 or 4 a.m. The headset's still on, still running, and thought he had died.
Yeah, because he couldn't find his hands.
He couldn't find his hands. He couldn't. He's like looking around. He's not. He didn't
have a body.
Yeah.
I mean, like, you almost shouldn't laugh, but it's the funniest story.
That's so good.
You have to laugh.
I remember when you told me that at a party quite late at night, and I just lost it for quite a while.
I lost it when I heard it in the Board Game Lounge.
Oh, man.
I'm losing it now.
It's so good. What else have we got?
I also love the fact that they found that for lots of people, like, there's all these tiny tricks they need to do in VR to stop people from feeling quite immediately ill.
Yeah, I went to the Oculus launch games showcase and I played 10 games for a half hour each for 5 hours.
Oh my god, really?
And I felt like shit.
Yeah.
For like a good 24 hours afterwards.
Welcome to the future. It's nauseating.
Yeah, and that was actually our biggest performing article of all of GDC, apart from the PS4 scoop, was me saying I felt like shit after a whole day of VR. But I think it's just, I've never done that before, and I'm sure over time it will be easier. But
will it though? I mean, have you heard any of the stuff about? I actually haven't read anything online about this, but people I know who work in VR saying like it affects women so much worse than men.
I have heard this. I've not heard why, which makes me think that maybe it's bullshit.
I know.
But I think there is it's something to do, like something to do with the inner ear.
It is something to do with biology, but I know people who actually work in development in VR who say, it is purely a consequence.
Well, that would make a lot of sense, because the thing is that, inevitably in the tech industry and in the games industry, the first people to try stuff out are almost always entirely men.
Almost always entirely men. And the first people making the tech are men.
Yeah,
These problems don't surface for a long time.
Precisely. So if there's an app or a piece of tech or a piece of hardware like this, and it has a problem that's unique to women, for instance, you have an app where you can rate your friends, and then women start using it, and they're like, we have severe personal safety concerns, and it's of course not occurred to the developers or the early beta testers because they're dudes. And I think similarly with VR, if there is a physiological issue that makes it more difficult for women, that's not going to surface.
Well, also, it's such fine tuning, such crazy. It is almost rocket
like
science.
You were saying,
that all it takes is a tiny thing like that, a tiny physiological difference. It doesn't need to be much, like something in the ear or whatever, and it might just throw all the calculations.
Were you going to give any other examples?
Yeah, well, they've been saying like a lot of the stuff they found early on is like having these tiny cubes constantly in your vision, almost like you can't even really see them, but by having tiny 3D cubes floating around just in the player's vision, it's enough for the brain to lock onto them as points of interest.
Yeah, there's a button. I played Adrift, which is Adam Orth's game about being stuck in an exploded spaceship, which is so unpleasant. Yeah. It's horrible.
Yeah, it's like Gravity, which is weird.
It's like the opening scene of Gravity. Like, that's stressful enough to watch.
I've heard lots of people say they couldn't do that.
I felt like vomiting immediately. I managed to kind of get through it, but the thing is, he has a button in that game. You hold the button and your vision just becomes like a small circle in the middle of the screen, and you focus on that for a bit, and then it kind of resets your...
I've heard it was just intense too much.
It's horrible. The thing is like your body is... The problem with VR at the moment, and maybe this will fade as we get used to it, so I'm not going to write it right off immediately, but the problem with VR is that your body is telling you, I'm in immense and present danger.
Yeah.
Your whole, like, I looked at I had a Fitbit tracker on while I was playing VR for the whole day, and my heart rate was over 100 the whole time. My resting heart rate is like 58, and it was at 100 the whole time I was in VR. And when I was doing the Gravity scene, it was at 110, 120.
Wait, it was 100 even during some of the more sedate demos?
Yeah. Just because my body was like my body was kind of coursing me with, like, for instance, in almost all of the demos, you are in a situation in which you're in danger, because that's how games work. Like, you're in danger, you're shooting.
That's how games work now.
Yeah, sedate experiences are going to become much more of a thing.
That's what I was saying. Like, I was talking to Ollie Welsh and Chris Pratt about this when we were on the Eurogame podcast, and I hadn't really tried a lot of VR at this point, but the one thing I couldn't get my head around was it's just too intense. Like, and
it's unpleasant.
They're trying to make intense experiences, and Ollie said again with the drift, he said
that's what games have always done well.
A drift opens, and you are floating in space, surrounded by debris, with you're tethered to the space station by a loose cord. That's how the game opens, and you're like, immediately I was like, this is awful. Why would I want this?
That's why I said it. I want just more chill games. It was
quite impressive, because to be fair, I've never played a game on a screen that's made me feel as, like, immediately terrified. I mean, it's quite intense, but I just don't want that.
Like, I mean, that's why my idea is like, I want a little gardening game. I want, like, Animal Crossing, where you go in every day and you've got a tiny little garden, you just water the plants.
I've got
a thing. It's nice weather today.
Got a thing for my Gear VR, which is basically like the beach thing that you mentioned earlier. It's just a selection of nice places.
Yeah.
And, if you're on... The idea is, if you're on your commute, obviously this is not socially acceptable now, but eventually, maybe, if you're on your commute, you can just put it on the train and be like, I'm not on a train, I'm on a beach.
That exists on PSP, like Virtual Island and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, actually, Boku no Natsuyasame and a bunch of...
Oh, right, yeah, it's a whole genre.
Yeah, it's a whole genre in Japan. It's just, like, commuting games that are just nice. Like, Neko Atsume is another one. Basically, just nice things are happening, and you look at them and pretend you're not on the train.
But you see, it's funny, earlier when we were talking about like inequality in San Francisco and like inequality in general, and we're going to go, we should talk about VR. It's like, I think the two are kind of weirdly interlinked.
Yeah,
maybe not now.
That's a good observation.
But it's this thing at the point where, like, obviously now it's very expensive, it's very heavy, but in a few years' time, like, if VR is this sort of like thing that people can properly escape into, then you know what? Governments and stuff are going to want there to be less inequality, so everyone could just buy one and just fuck off.
Right, it's TV, right?
That is the government dream.
It's like TV, but like, have you guys seen VR porn?
No.
Oh man, I've seen some of it.
I wrote a feature on it for Gizmodo, because every feature I've seen on VR porn is a dude talking about it. And I was like, why the fuck are women invited to VR porn? So the editor of Gizmodo was like, well, why didn't you find out? So I went and bought a bunch of VR porn and then wrote a feature about it. That shit is terrifyingly good. Like, to the point where I'm like,
because I was wondering, like, is it a teenager, all bad?
No, well, I mean, some of the porn is bad.
Yeah, you get good luck hiding a fucking HDCV from your dad.
The thing is that some of the porn is bad, because the fact is, most of the people who are doing VR porn right now are the very, like, Hollywood style big money porn companies, and the porn they make is not to my taste at all. It's like super gross and
but it's like
really performance-y and Hollywood-y.
It puts you in the room, so to speak.
It's usually POV, like point of view style. So essentially, you put the headset on, and you are usually a built dude with a giant dick, and you're lying completely.
Was that disconcerting to you?
No, I liked it.
Well, this is the thing. My head immediately went to it's. Let me be a lady.
Well, it's very interesting stuff. Like, I mean, if you're, depending on your preferences, it's very interesting to be put in a different body. And most of it, there is some female POV stuff. You can read this feature on Gizmodo when it goes up if you're that interested, listeners. But yeah, so you're in the POV situation. But the weird thing is, because it's VR, it tries to not move, because if you move,
so you're an entirely static man.
Completely, it's like the sex scenes in Grand Theft Auto 5, in that you're completely static, just sitting there, and the women are performing for you, on you, and all around you. And so you can move your head, but nothing else, and it's kind of this weird situation of, like, weird. You're in a kind of rictus sex situation. The thing is that
doesn't sound that hot.
What I found really interesting was
it kind of does.
with the mainstream stuff, like, you know, I'm not going to mention the brand names, but there's a particular brand and the women in those films are performing really well to the camera.
Sure.
Like, they're looking at you, they're talking to you, they're like in your face. It's quite disconcerting, actually. They're right up in your face and they're really performing. But then when you switch to the female point of view from the same company, the dudes aren't performing. The dudes are just like looking at their own penises or like somewhere above your head, or like, and the thing is, when you've got the headset on, the urge is for you to just be like hello, and like, waving, because they're just sort of looking at the wall or whatever, because they're not used to having to perform, because the focus on them in their normal porn acting life, the focus is not on them, the focus is on the woman, and they're just there to be a stunt.
Oh, you gotta give us a link when this article goes live so we can tweet it on the Cool
It's
Ghost
super
account.
interesting, in my humble opinion, but the gay stuff is good. Because the guys, again, they're used to performing.
Right, yeah.
So most of the female POV stuff is like funny, like it's rubbish. It's not even remotely arousing. The male POV stuff with women is like a bit too kind of performative and gross for my taste. But the gay stuff is super good. And the thing is, at the moment, the only people who can afford to do VR porn are the companies with the big budgets.
Yeah.
So when we get the more feminist, queer, smaller porn companies, when they can start affording to do it, it's going to be a lot better. Like, you know, more you know, fringe and more female-oriented stuff.
Is there porn for the Vive yet? Vive?
Yeah, most of the companies have porn that you can download for your Oculus, Vive, or Gear VR.
So, for the people at home, the Vive is the VR, which actually requires you to set up sensors, then you can walk around.
Oh my god, there's nothing specifically for
That's what I was wondering.
That would be crazy.
I mean, who was it that who tweeted something along the lines of, like, basically being in the Eyes Wide Shut scene of wandering around
Oh my god.
and not being able to do anything because you're Tom Cruise.
I saw that film when I was way too young. I saw it on the TV when I was about 10, and I had no idea what was happening.
I swear if I saw that film now, I mean, it has to be.
I saw it like for the first time
as I remember.
I saw it about 3 or 4 weeks ago. Or maybe a couple of months ago. It's all right.
The thing about VR porn is I thought, because when I first started using it, it was actually overwhelming. I feel uncomfortable and like weird.
Overwhelming, like you were actually having or like it was uncomfortable to have an actor doing that.
It felt like because they were right in your face and stuff, and I was like,
it sounds intense.
It is intense, and the thing is, you get used to it a little bit over time. After the third or fourth kind of thing you watch, you get kind of used to it.
After your third and fourth,
I'm not quite sure about this. I'm not sure about this yet. I'll
watch another one.
Well, I was doing it for a feature. Like, if I hadn't been writing about it.
Hey, I tell you what, this is actually making use of one of VR's downsides. This is turning a bug into a feature because a lot of people sweat when using VR, right? So now you're watching porn, and you're just sort of sweating. You're getting your sweat on. Great stuff. Sorry, keep going.
The thing is, when I first put it on, I found it so overwhelming that it freaked me out. And I thought, if I showed my 72-year-old mother internet porn, like normal internet porn, which to me is like not even a thing.
Probably wouldn't have a great night.
She'd probably be like, but she'd probably be like, "This is way too much.
Yeah,
I'm grossed out."
What do you think she would do with the VR headset?
Well, this is like I wouldn't.
Let's find out. We've got her here.
Oh my god, that'd be another feature for Gizmodo. I showed my 72-year-old mother VR porn.
Oh, dude, someone's going to do that, but it doesn't have to be you.
No, I don't. No, my mother. No, I would never show my mother that filth.
But on the subject, I was talking to people about this with I was talking to Bennett Foddy about it because Bennett Foddy, like king of really masochistic bullshit, and he was saying that he was working on a VR game. And actually, before I finish this off, I'll mention that there's one bug that one VR developer told us about. The interesting thing about developing for VR being that if there's something wrong with your game, usually you load up a build and it's like, oh, it's fucked. But with VR, you can get like bad things can happen. For example, this developer loaded up a build and he's looking around, it's all fine. He looks left. Fine. Looks right? Fine. Looks up. His right eye moves up. His left eye stays still. And then you try and link the eyes up again, and obviously that doesn't work.
It's just immediate, like
instant vomit. So Bennett Foddy's game.
That would also make your brain would just be like,
the brain is like I'm dying.
Yeah, exactly.
It's really horrible. Yeah.
It's not just horrible. It's like you like illness follows. But so Bennett Foddy's idea for a game is just a sort of game where you have to navigate an environment. And the head sensor tracks all inputs except down, meaning if you ever look up, in order to lock your vision back on a sort of level plane, you need to look up, down, up to slowly work your vision up in a 360-degree circle.
Oh, no.
Projectile bomb.
Just bad. Just bad. But yeah, no, a lot of this stuff.
But to finish my thread, there's going to be a subculture now of just people as like, how long can you survive the vomit level? Yeah. And just total masochism.
Yeah.
And it's going to be fascinating.
I don't actually like VR very much at the moment. Like, I'm interested in it, and obviously because of my job, I've played with it a bunch. But I think if I weren't I'm just not interested in it.
I think just about everyone seems to like the Vive, right?
It's too intense for me though.
Vive.
It's fun for 10 minutes is the thing. Like, if given the choice between playing Adrift, which exists in VR and on a screen, much rather go for a screen every time. And I think the problem is I've played with a lot of different VR things right now, and generally if you could say to me tomorrow, you're never going to use a VR thing ever again, I'd be like, all right. I wouldn't mind that much.
I think like the problem they've got at the moment, and I've said this on a few podcasts, but I think that the problem is that you've got lots of people who like playing games for like 5-10 minutes and then like having a break, and then you've got lots of people who have loads of money and are willing to invest hardware and are really up for this sort of heavy hardware. But I'm not sure where the middle point is, because I really feel like the sorts of people who are going to invest a lot of money are going to want something they can sit and play for hours, whereas the sorts of people who are just happy with 5-10 minute bursts.
Oh, I think
the real applications for VR that I can see and that I kind of opened up to me when I first used an Oculus Touch controller thing, and they're the controllers that they're two kind of balls, like sphere things that are in your hands, kind of like a wee nunchuck, and but they sense where your fingers are, so you can grab things, hold things, point. When I tried that demo, and all I was doing was sitting in a room, like a normal like Matrix style room with a bunch of stuff, and there was another person sitting opposite me who was in a different room. And we were just like chatting and picking things up and playing ping pong and throwing balls to each other.
Oh, so it was like sort of Skype, but
it was Skype, but in a virtual space. That was when I thought this makes sense, because I have a lot of friends who live in different countries, and the idea of in 5 or 10 years being able to just be like, oh, shall we Vive, and being able to just put it on and then just have a normal chat like he was sitting next to me, like we are now. That. Brilliant. I do that all the time. But the idea of playing games in it, I'm still not.
I played 2 demos on the Vive and Vive. I wish I did some sort of crib sheet for this.
Well, I've been switching liberally between Vive.
Yeah, you have. If you have, then we've got no hope.
Yeah. So I played 2 things. And one of them really impressed me. The other one was just kind of a bit of fun. One of them was like I think it was called like End of Pier Games or something. It was like a pier thing, and it was basically like loads of little like kind of pier style arcade machines like Whack-A-Mole and throwing the basketball through the hoops. And it was kind of a fun little thing, but I found the interesting thing that happened to me immediately was the fact, because my brain was looking around the room, I really felt like I was in this large room on my own, left with these machines. And something about being left with these little like coin operator machines on my own with no one there, nothing watching me, made me something about that, it felt real enough for my brain to just react in the way my brain always wants to react in that circumstance, which is to misbehave. So I then started like realizing I was like these tiny rubber balls from one of the games that you're supposed to fire up this chute and land them in holes. I started picking them up and throwing them through the holes of the Whack-A-Mole machine and just being like picking up the basketballs and throwing them behind me and just letting them bounce around the room, and just like I was like having way more fun just like fucking up with this stuff and just being like, I'm going to cause trouble. Although it did mean I punched them on the back of the head because I didn't know they were there. And this is like,
so that's the other thing about VR is you don't like the other thing about VR porn as well. Like imagine your mum walking in on you with
it's not what it looks like. Or maybe it is.
There's an apocryphal story about
just imagine like waking, like you take the headset off and she's just put a fresh cup of tea for you.
That is the story that everyone tells of the gentleman with the headphones listening to an album alone in his room. And then he wakes up and there's a mug of tea there.
Yeah, but
he was wanking as well.
Yeah,
that's the key part of that story.
you missed
Otherwise, it's just like, thanks for tea.
But yeah, so that was kind of fun, and I found it really. The weird thing about that though is I got really into the final thing of the pyramid, which was just one of those machines where you try and grab a toy.
Oh,
the grabber machines?
The UFO catchers.
And it was equally fucking annoying. But because I was putting fake coins in the machine, I kept doing it, kept pressing the button, and kept trying to get a fucking teddy bear for ages, until eventually I got so angry that I got actually quite frustrated, because then the natural thing I wanted to do was to grab the machine and shake it. Not with any hope of doing anything, but just out of sheer frustration. And as soon as I tried to grab it, it just went, as if to go like, you're out of the bounds of like, you shouldn't be doing this sort of thing. But I was like, fuck you. But the thing I went nuts for was called Space Pirate Trainer. And basically, it's a game which trains you to be a space pirate. And that was the first thing.
Of course, yes.
Yeah, but that was the first thing
as well,
where I was like, actually, this is doing something which I've never seen a game be able to do. And it was mainly due to peripheral vision. The idea that both of your hands with the Vive controllers, you had these 2 guns. And you could like change what the guns were, like machine gun, submachine gun, pistol, by like flicking the little wheels around on the controller. It all felt very slick. But basically it was these tiny little like Star Wars style drones almost that would fly around. And they fly off to the left and the right. And you had this wonderful thing of being able to like, literally like look as far left as you possibly can to like one corner of your eye, and then look as far to the right as you possibly can. You're literally just checking the edges of your peripheral vision, like flicking back and left and right, while you've got both your arms out like you're in equilibrium, and you're like basically correcting the shots. And when I got to this moment where I was good at it and actually going left, right, and like basically constantly shooting, but just constantly making corrections so that I could hit both things and kill them both. And the fact that I could do that, I was like, wow, I've never played a game which has like allowed me to really feel like I was in the Matrix. And the thing is, I just went nuts. I started like, it has this wonderful thing where these robots fire a laser beam at you, and when it's about to hit you, it slows down and the audio goes
like super hot.
Yeah. But then it means you see it coming towards you, and then you can either just step out of the way, but obviously what I was doing was like lunging. I was like doing some proper like Neo stuff of like ducking and lunging, and then as soon as it went over my head, and as soon as the laser was gone and the speed jumped back, I was like jumped up on my feet, firing with two hands, spinning around, doing some proper Devil May Cry shit. It was amazing. But I realised it actually gave me the same kind of joy that the Wii did and the Kinect did with some games at first, of actually feeling like you're really into it.
Yeah.
But with the immersion as well, I was like, it's hot. But the thing I learned is that my legs are not VR ready, because I got so excited that I was just pretending that I was Neo from the Matrix, but I'm not. And my legs really hurt for about 48 hours.
I have to say, I've been really glad I've been going to the gym when I was playing a game called Dead and Buried, and it's like a gunslinger game where it's like a 2v2 shooter, right? And so there's two of you on one team, two of the other, and you're on either sides of a big saloon, and you spawn just somewhere in the saloon, and you're probably near some cover, and you have to run over to the cover and like dive behind it physically, and then pop up and shoot. So I was like on the floor in real life, like leaning out from behind a pillar, just shooting like, and but you had to kind of duck up and down a lot. There was a lot of kind of standing on your haunches. Yeah, a lot of squatting.
Squatting is it?
Whole bunch of squatting.
Squatting will kill you.
But I think that's the thing that excites me most about VR. If they have loads of these games that are like specifically made to be like, well, technically, yeah, you're a cowboy, or technically you're a space pirate, but basically it's like fitness. Like, that would be bad.
There's going to be
the other cool game. Sorry.
No, there's just going to be a whole like 10, 15 years where all of us have swole thighs and nothing else. But just the thighs.
The other cool game I played was, I played a few, but the other coolest one was, so imagine any kind of shmup.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I've heard about this, yeah.
Ikaruga, whatever.
Yeah, I've heard about this.
But your actual hand is the ship, and you're in 3D space, and you can move around the room. So to avoid the bullets, you're like moving your actual hand around into the spaces between the bullets and shooting, and you can kind of duck and sort of crawl and stand up on the other side and perspective shift. So it's like, it's a shmup, but in proper
The idea
dimensions.
of actually like, the boss unleashes his super, and to avoid it, you have to lie on the floor is awesome.
I did do that, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Or like just quickly scan the room to find where the gap is.
Yeah, it's like, where's the gap? It's almost like a hole in the wall, right?
Yeah, like the gaps were, you had to kind of weave carefully around the gaps, but I also noticed that if I just lay down on the floor, I would miss all the bullets. So did I ever tell you about
just lie on the floor the whole time?
Did I tell you about the first time I ever tried Oculus Rift?
Maybe not.
It was like 4 years ago, and I was at EVE FanFest. And it was EVE Valkyrie, which is a cockpit dogfighting game in space. And so I was standing up, and I was the first person in the room to try it. It was the first time I'd ever... It was an Oculus Rift DK1. I was so excited. First VR game I'd ever tried. And I was in front of a room full of people, and they gave me the headset and strapped it on and everything. And I was like, fuck! Because it is amazing the first time you go into VR. And the problem was I sort of looked around excitedly at the cockpit, looked at the ship, looked at space, lost my tiny mind. Then I looked down, and in the game I was sitting, and my legs were sat. And so I looked down, and then my actual legs and my brain just went, nope. And I fell over. I was standing, and my legs just couldn't understand what was happening.
Wow.
So my legs went out from under me. I fell over in front of a room of people.
The story that was always getting passed around at our convention, or like stories, were all to do with The Walk.
Oh, God,
Which was, you did that one?
Yeah. I couldn't do that one. The guy had to hold my hand.
Right,
It's based on the film, right, where it's walking across...
I physically couldn't do it.
Yeah,
lots of people said that, yeah.
It's a VR representation of a tightrope walk between the two Twin Towers, except because that distance is like, hundreds of feet. It was hundreds of feet.
You only have to go a little bit.
You only go like 20 feet and it turns you around. But yeah, they have a wind machine blowing, and the thing being like 20% of people...
I did that at GDC. I genuinely couldn't.
Yeah, 20% of people can't even take the first step, which is interesting. And we had one of our volunteers at the board game lounge, Ben, took a few steps out, and he was nervous, he describes, but he walks. And once he's walking along the wire, they literally tape to the floor, so you can feel it with your toes. Once he was walking, he was actually completely fine. And then one of the devs goes, why don't you try looking down?
Yeah.
And he looks down and just falls over.
Yeah, a lot of people fell over playing that demo.
Yeah.
I had to get the dev was a Kotaku fan, oddly enough. And so I was standing there with it on, like looking at because the thing is, once you start you know in your brain that you're not actually there.
Yeah.
But your body's just going, this is terribly dangerous. Stop. What are you doing? Moron, stop. Danger. Ah! And so I was like standing at the edge of the wire, and I physically couldn't. I couldn't make myself take a step. So the dev grabbed my hand in real world, so I couldn't see.
Yeah.
Grabbed my hand and yanked me forward. And I genuinely thought I was going to die for a few seconds.
Again, it's
brains,
it's fascinating.
He was gentle. He didn't yank me, but he gently pulled me forward.
I mean, I think the exciting thing is apparently this year, like even though there's tons of indie-based talks at GDC, it sounded like indies were just going to the VR talks more than
The
that.
thing is, I was speaking to what's his name, Shuhei Yoshida, about PSVR, and he's like, it is so easy to persuade indies to make VR games because devs are always looking for new cool things to play with.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
indies, no problem. Try and persuade a large business or a publisher to make a VR game.
It was fascinating
and you get nowhere.
how, like, you know, there was basically everyone was doing something a bit VR-y this year, and I mean, it was fascinating walking past what Ubisoft had offered because it just looked like absolute shit. Like, it looked like they
The
really...
bird was good.
I mean, I don't know, because I looked at that and it just looked pure
It
Kinect.
does look rubbish, but it's great.
Really? Because I heard it was really weird, the fact that you're basically, you're not moving,
You
but
steer.
you're
So this is an
flying
eagle
through
game.
space.
You're an eagle, and you're in Paris, and it's 50 years after humanity has died, and it's full of animals, and you fly with your head. So you kind of tilt your head side to side and forward and back. And I really enjoyed it. It was great fun. It's like you have eagle death matches. Like I was playing Palmer Lucky actually in my team. And so we had like eagle, and I was really into it, like because I've always
Fair enough. Well,
who hasn't wanted to be a bird? I've always wanted.
I
to be
say
a bird.
this because every time I've tried anything Oculus based where like I'm physically moving and I'm not moving, and there's no
No,
like.
but you are moving with your head.
No, I know, but still,
So it feels like you're. The thing is,
I've seen on the screen they're going pretty fast
Yeah,
forward,
yeah.
and I found even slight forward movement, like when I wasn't in a spaceship or something like that, when I was sitting still, I could not get used
You
to
should
that.
try it because I'd be interested to see. Because for me, that was one of the ones that really, really worked. But the only problem with that is that I genuinely thought I could fly afterwards.
That's fascinating.
and I was like, I'm invincible.
That's fascinating because I spoke to I didn't check it out because I spoke to loads of people who said they tried it and said that like it just wasn't very good.
Oh, see, I had a good half hour with it, so
Fair enough.
I had time to kind of the first few minutes. I didn't know.
Well, the other thing they've done was they've done werewolf, but they've made it so it's basically
Yeah.
werewolf. But
The weird thing about that was
which is
that
just like, why would you do that? I don't know. Like,
the other thing is at conventions, and you mentioned this earlier, but the problem is people take pictures of you all the time with VR headsets on without your permission, or they take video of you. So I ended up stopping doing the VR demos because like one too many times I'd just take it off and there'd be some dude with a camera right in front of me who I hadn't known was there. And that was really
sucks.
it was really creepy. I didn't like that at all. And during the bird one, it was actually I asked someone to take video of that. But you know they
you
showed me the
flapping
video.
your arms for no reason.
Well, no, but you're doing these head movements and you look like an absolute crazy person. You're just sort of tilting your head around with your mouth slightly
Fair
open.
play. Well, I take back my outrage at Ubisoft's
It is good. I
direction.
liked it, but you know,
But I think I just found it really interesting the fact there's like there's loads of different approaches.
Yeah.
And I'm just interested to see what comes next because I think at the moment it's all been about like ramping it up and having these experiences.
I know.
the problem is like that bird game, for instance, is 4v4 8-player competitive multiplayer. Who the hell is going to know someone
Yeah,
with
yeah.
seven? Who's going to know
Well,
7 other people with VR?
matchmaking, right?
Yeah, but who's going to know 7 other people with VR?
But you don't need to if there's matchmaking.
Is it just me or like I think the PlayStation VR thing? I know it's
That's very
cheapest,
strange.
but it looks bad. Like in terms of what the set headset.
It's sure sold out real quick.
I know,
I
but
like it.
I think the headset looks like
Best one for people with glasses.
no, but I mean what it looks like because they tried to make it look really
They
futuristic.
all look dumb.
No, but I like.
they all look really
I like
cool.
because the Vive looks like proper like cyberpunk. It doesn't. It looks horrible, but in a way
PSVR
which
looks
is
good. It
like.
looks like Japanese VR, which is what it is.
I suppose so.
Yeah.
The thing,
That's pure taste. That's not even like.
Yeah, it's very much so.
One puzzle that wasn't being discussed much that I do really like is the idea of multiplayer VR, but not necessarily in the sense of you and your friends playing online, but in the same room, right? When you only have one headset. And the one that
Oh, PlayStation VR does that. There's a few really cool games.
Oh, yeah. So Matt had one exceptionally, good idea to do with... we were demoing a game called Mysterium, which is essentially a sort of card game where it's a board
Oh, I
game.
played that.
Yeah, you did, in fact.
was
Yeah, I
really
said, hey,
fun.
play this for 10 minutes, and then you stay there for the whole
If you want to know
hour.
about Mysterium, in fact, you can check it out on Shut Up and Sit Down, right? We've got-
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
I'm
If you
gonna
search,
buy Mysterium. I really enjoyed it.
You should buy
Yeah,
it.
it's
So
great.
you search Shut Up and Sit Down Mysterium review, but basically, it's a whole cooperative game. Bunch of psychics living in a house. There's a ghost player who can't speak, and the ghost give people dream cards to guide them towards murderers and suspects and stuff. So it's you going, I dreamt of whales flying through the sky. What the hell does that mean?
Yeah.
But Matt had an idea of like, hey, if we do this in VR, then you have one player who is just a medium and then a lot of players standing around them, like trying to discuss what the hell they're seeing.
So you're
and
seeing stuff and you're having to like convey them.
Seeing super trippy,
really good.
weird, awful shit. Because that's in every horror movie ever. But there was one game, and I don't know if this was deliberate or not, but it was just, you know, that one scene from, oh God, is it Entrapment? Where Catherine Zeta-Jones goes through the laser wire.
Yeah.
Oh, that sounds horrible.
Well, so it's just a VR game of that. So one person puts on the headset and then climbs through all the lasers.
Never has to guide them.
Except no, because they can see the lasers. The game for everyone else is you get to watch your friend doing the weirdest motions in the world in terms of like crouching and crawling and ducking and doing all the ridiculous Catherine Zeta-Jones movements from that sequence.
I think I've realised that what I don't like is VR games in which you can die. Like, at all. In which you're in any danger. Mm-hmm. At that point, I'm like, nope, don't like it.
I guess the fascinating problem is really because you can't understand what it's like until you try it. The only way that the video games companies can convince people it's cool is by basically just showing them video games that are in VR, and they're just using basically traditional video games. But actually, as soon as you get into it,
you want something else.
You go, actually, this is too intense. This is too much. You go, wow, this is amazing. But like, so I think it's one of those weird things where it might just be like having a brand new console generation, but in a weird way of, because we haven't had that for a while, of having that early wave of it being like the early stuff is just shit.
Yeah.
And then like, because they don't know what to do with it, and then once people have got it, but I don't know. I really don't know if it's going to take off or not.
Well, I think it's going to be like smartphones, right? Like smartphones are smartphones. You can play games on them, but they're not for games.
Yeah.
And I think with VR that will be the thing. Like it will be, you can play games on it if you want, but it'll be mostly.
It'll
for
be my porn
stuff.
hat.
Yeah, it'll be porn hat and social connections.
Hey, do you know you can play video games on these porn hats? No way.
Well, see,
I worry about, seriously though. I think if you'd shown me that VR porn when I was 14, I would not have left the house for like 18 months.
Yeah.
I'm really worried that that's going to actually happen.
Oh man,
to
but you know, I know. More than ever, I agree with you, but we have been mounting this argument against people who's like, oh, well, you know, these video games are very addictive. For our whole, you know, we've been...
To be fair, though, internet porn did kind of fuck up our generation a little bit.
Did it?
I think so. I mean, it got redressed, but we're much more visual than the pre-internet porn generation. We have different expectations. Some of it's been good, but some of it's also been bad. Like,
oh, sure. So we're more sexually aware, but also our expectations as to what sex is are different?
Yes. That's in a nutshell, yeah. But, you know, this is something, as you know, as a woman of that generation who has had to interact with straight men.
Right.
Like, the differences are pretty large compared to the pre-porn, pre-video porn. And I think the VR porn generation, unfortunately, you're just going to have a bunch of teenage boys lying motionless. Come on, then.
This is how it works.
Yeah, I lie motionless,
here,
and you, like...
And then stuff happens.
Do all the things.
Where are all the other women? There are usually more women than this.
But can you imagine how disappointing actual, like, rubbish young teenager sex is going to be if you spent 2 years looking at VR pornography with professionals in it?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Because that was already a problem with internet.
But we can't fall into this trap. We can't become every old generation ever that is.
No, Queens, we must.
I know it's our destiny,
the cycle must continue.
I feel like this is the first time I've ever really felt what my parents must have felt like. Though.
Sure.
But because VR is so far into me, and I'm keeping an open mind, but I do have serious reservations about its usefulness in society.
I mean... It will have uses in society. It will also be deeply useless for a lot of ways. Well, yeah. I mean, if I feel like if anything was going to derail humanity, it was going to be the internet.
Yeah,
I think.
I mean, I'm not apocalyptic about it. I think there's going to be some problems that will be caused by VR that will be unique to the generation that grew up with it.
Sure, but
and they also have some advantages.
But just like us moving towards a digital society has caused people to value like objects and going outside in a weird way more than they did in the 80s and 90s. I think that
true,
VR is also going to cause people to value going outdoors and
but
real sex.
Do you not think we're actually going to have like almost a split society of people who, you know, are like realists versus VR?
You know, the funny thing is...
This is just my science fiction brain.
Those people already exist on the internet, right? People who just exist on the internet
that's
again.
And people who refuse to. People who are just like, I don't do social media and anything like that.
That's very true. But in VR, that's going to be a much starker contrast.
The funny thing is, 10 years ago, I would have been like, no, Keza, no, that's ridiculous. That's too cyberpunk. But now everything is so cyberpunk.
Oh my God, the world's so dystopian right now.
Yeah, especially, San Francisco with the VR taking us back full circle. Yeah, San Francisco with the people walking around outside who are in desperate need of healthcare.
Again, the reason we were at San Francisco and GDC was we were there for Shut Up and Sit Down to
which
show
is a physical
board game. And it felt this year was busier than last year by quite a margin.
It was.
And I really feel like one of the reasons that we're at the moment, you know, board games are seeing this massive resurgence across the world. They're getting really popular again. And I think it is because it's almost self-medicating. It's the fact that people know, they might not know this explicitly, but everyone knows that they spend too much time just with screens and not enough time with people.
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly been a backlash. There's certainly been a backlash for, I mean, certainly as I was a digital native teenager, I spent all my time on the internet. constantly.
Yeah.
And when I turned about 22, I sort of started being like,
You know what's funny? Yeah, the three of us actually all, like, as we, sort of approach like mid to late 20s, suddenly started caring a lot more about going outside, about physical stuff, about...
It's true,
Like,
yeah.
I still love video games, but what do I do in my spare time? I like playing board games. I like cooking. It's all these things of
I
being
do, like exercise.
Yeah,
I
that's
do
the thing. I honestly think it's, as you say, like we are just getting further and further this stuff, and VR is the next step to that. But I think most people, there will always be extremities, but I think most people automatically counter it and automatically balance out their life and just spend more time like purposefully not doing. So I think what we'll see is that VR will become popular, but then probably also will be a trend of people just like purposefully not looking at their phone for a long time.
That's very, very interesting. I wonder how this is going to pan out. It'll be interesting to watch, won't it?
Yeah, people will start doing mega sports, which is like sports, but you're twice as outside. I don't know, but it's going to be interesting. Anyway,
it's just nudity, right?
Yeah, it's
being
just,
twice as outside
twice
sounds
as
like a
outside.
euphemism for being naked.
I'm twice as outside. Now I've taken off clothes.
Quite like that. It's good.
Thank you very much for listening to
Yeah,
Daft
thank you very much.
everybody.
Daft has been an episode where we've basically just talked about GDC and VR. That's
Hey,
fine.
This has been a very interesting conversation.
This has been a really great podcast. And hey, you know what, people at home? If you want to support this podcast, if you might have noticed, there's no adverts. There will never be any adverts because we're entirely a Patreon-supported podcast.
Yeah, it's true. As part of coolghost.net. So you can go to patreon.com/coolghost. But just pop over to coolghost.net. Pop over to coolghost.net. I got it right the second time. And just say hello. There will be, if you're watching this on YouTube, there'll be a link in the description which will take you to the conversation thread on the website so you can talk about these things. Obviously, let's keep it
I bet we're going to get a really good discussion around this
Keep it a
podcast.
bit light on the porn discussions, but yeah, pop over, say hello.
Porn.
That's fine. That's fine.
Porn.
It's just not getting into too much detail.
Did you see the Kickstarter for the device, which is just like, it looks like a car engine, but you put your penis in
Oh,
it?
the Robo Pussy. Yeah.
Wow.
Is that the name of it?
No, that's just what I call it.
Okay, yeah, no, it had a classy name.
So they have one of the companies called Virtual Real Porn or whatever they're called. They have special devices where the device, you basically link it up to the video in question.
Yes.
And it syncs up with the video.
Yes.
So that what is happening in the video is what is happening to your dick.
And then there's the whole subject of teledildonics, which we'll be talking about exclusively next week.
I am so glad I ticked the box that said this is an explicit podcast. Otherwise, bye iTunes.
You can do it individually per podcast.
Oh,
useful.
cool. But it's mostly explicit, let's be honest.
If you would also like to read a very interesting thing about video games, why don't you have a look at kotaku.co.uk, which I edit, and I pretty much only put interesting things on it.
Yeah, it's like it's a more specialist stream of Kotaku where the better stuff is available. Right? I mean, I thought that's what you were implying. I don't. Okay, wait, fine.
That's what Quinn
It's
said.
just more UK oriented.
I'm sorry.
Put it that way.
I'm a snob. I prefer kotaku.co.uk, and you should go because Keza does great work there.
Thank you very much for listening to the podcast, and we will return probably just to talk about video games next week.
Porn.
No.
Porn.
No.
Bye.
Bye.